Hi, you may know the union movement will be having discussions with employer groups and the federal government about workers' rights. The government has withdrawn its union-bashing bill from Parliament and invited the union movement to meet with employers about the laws that govern workplace rights. What's at stake is the Fair Work Act. That's a set of laws that cover workers' rights and employer obligations. The issues facing the economy coming out of the coronavirus are serious, and many industries and jobs are under pressure. We all know that there were also serious issues before the pandemic. Wages were not keeping up with the cost of living, and more jobs were casual or insecure. Literally millions of Australians lost their jobs immediately because they were casual, and they've also had no access to sick leave or holiday pay or any of the basic rights workers in Australia used to rely on. The government had a process underway reviewing the Fair Work Act, which started last year, but this was really happening without us. There was no direct discussions with them or with employers. Now that has changed. So what will we be doing at these discussions? On behalf of working people, we're very clear about our principles. First, there must not be reductions in rights at work. Secondly, the current set of laws were not delivering for working people before the pandemic, and they will certainly hold the economy back as Australia tries to rebuild. We have two big problems: too many insecure jobs, and pay was not keeping up with the cost of living. Check out these graphs.
Here we can see pay rates in both the public and private sectors barely growing and essentially trapped between 0.6 and 0.4%. Further to this, a growing number of Australians are getting stuck on minimum award rates and are not able to access collective bargaining. And here, see that steep line shooting upwards? That's our productivity and how much more productive we are now than ever before. It's those other lagging lines that are the problem, however. They're our wages, and they're not keeping up.
What all these graphs show is that our country was becoming more unequal and less fair. Companies and their shareholders, many of them overseas or in the Cayman Islands, were getting more and more of our nation's wealth, and working people have been getting less and less.
In terms of inequality, we may not be as bad as the United States, but our inequalities are growing and more vast than a country like Canada. You can also see the rich in Australia are indeed getting richer, and at least a lot quicker than the working majority. We also have widespread insecure work. Australia's workforce is the third most insecure in the OECD. And looking at just contract and casual workers, the argument can be made we are in fact the worst.
The reality of this insecurity and inequality was made clear through the pandemic. Many of the 1 in 3 casual workers with no access to leave were just let go by employers as they had no protections. We have had so many forms of insecure work in our country that JobKeeper couldn't even cover all of them. All of this has made our country less fair and weaker. Coming out of the pandemic, we want our country to be better, stronger and fairer. At the heart of this is jobs people, families and communities can count on, as well as pay that means the country's wealth is being fairly spread around. This is what we will be arguing: less casualisation and better rights so we get a fairer pay. There are concerns that some employers are using this pandemic to argue for permanent cuts to our rights at work and to take-home pay. And when I say permanent cuts, I mean cuts that will be passed on to the next generation. It's been pretty unfortunate hearing their demands: penalty rates and pay cuts. The same arguments they've had for years, and now they're trying to use the coronavirus to get them. We'll be having none of that. One of the most important things for our economy to recover is that workers have the confidence to spend. We are going to be cut off from the world for some time, which means we will depend on ordinary people spending. This will be what keeps local business going. Did you know that our whole economy is 60% domestic spending? We will depend on each other more than ever now our borders are closed. Many businesses know this, and they want to make sure that working people do not have to worry about having their rights or their wages cut. So we'll be approaching these discussions with an open mind and see if there can be common ground. Our principles in representing you are very clear. fairer and better rights at work. This is what our country needs, not just coming out of the pandemic, but for the next generation. We hope the government and business will be listening.